You're listening to the Racer to Racer podcast presented by Race 92. I'm your co-host, Aaron McAtee. Our other co-host, you may have seen him walking out of a great clips with a big old smile on his face. He is the man, the myth, the legend, Scott Bowie. This is our 2021 Indy 500 preview show. Later this week, we will be releasing 3 exciting podcasts with 3 former Indy 500 drivers, part of our special edition Week of Indy podcast. Today, for our Indy 500 preview show, we have 2 special guests. Our first guest competed in 5 Indy 500s, Spike Gehlhausen, and our other guest is YouTube sensation David Land. How's it going, gentlemen?
That's going fine. Thanks, Aaron, for the invite again. Looking forward to it.
Boy, my CEO sure does sound a lot less impressive up next to Spike Gehlhausen.
But that's not that. That's good. I like it that way.
Well, big weekend. I mean, we finally got to do it with fans again. Man, it looked like the crowd come out a little bit too, right? You were there. I unfortunately I didn't have a chance to go, David. What would you give the crowd count? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
It was normal.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there wasn't a whole lot on the inside of the track, mainly because they weren't letting people sit on the inside of the track for the most part. But it looked normal for what we kind of have come to expect the last 10 years. I think the people were excited, and I hope that translates to race day. I'm of the opinion that 137,000 people is going to sound an awful lot like 350,000 on race day, because I think we've all been starved of this, and it's going to be good to be back.
Yeah, I agree, man. Through the TV, I mean, you could really hear the crowd get excited, especially not somewhat during the bump day, although not, there wasn't much to be cheering about there because, I mean, there was just nobody could find that 2 mile an hour, unfortunately. But, boy, Fast 9, though, made up for it. That was impressive. I mean, that was impressive. We were talking to Spike about that earlier, and like he kind of alluded to, you got Dixon just running into one at 240. And that's what it took. It took every bit of that 240 to sell the pole.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually had a conversation today with R.C. Anderson, who is one of the drivers, obviously, who did not make the show. And one of the things I specifically asked him was looking at the telemetry for his run in particular. He was coming off of turn number 4 at 223 miles an hour, where even guys like Charlie Kimball, who were running relatively the same speed, were coming off at 225. And obviously the fast guys were coming off at 229, 230, 231. And, I guess I didn't realize it, but that straight line speed with the way the cars are now is so crucial, because all the cars, being virtually identical, scrub the same amount of speed through 3 and 4, 1 and 2. So when they exit the corner, the less straight line speed you have, the less lap time you have. So Scott Dixon being able to achieve that 240 miles an hour allowed them to take the pole just barely. I think the official margin was something like 6.2 feet over 10 miles over Colton Herta. So that was quite a show.
Yeah, I agree.
That was quite. That's close. I mean, that field is, I guess, the closest ever, as I understand.
Closest and fastest.
Yeah, it was quite a show for Sunday. There's no doubt.
Yeah, you could see it in all those cars fighting for that last 5 group of cars. You could just see they were just locked in. Almost we were talking about a little bit ago before we started recording, just like they'd hit the stall speed, and they never really could break through it. Power never really kind of broke through 235. Kimball couldn't really break through 234. Same with Di Silvestro, and Anderson was right around 233, maybe 234, maybe touched on it. And unfortunately, they just could not. Now the car that did break through, it did pick up that higher straightaway speed. Sage Karam, put himself safely in the show.
Yeah.
They found whatever it took, and I don't know. I don't know if it's in the body work. I don't know if it's in the shocks. I don't know where they're finding that getting that car down out of the air or making that thing get through the air. But when Penske can't figure it out, with all the everything that they've got there, you got to wonder what is going on.
Yeah, there's no doubt. But at the Speedway, it's going to sound kind of strange, but one of the most important places of Speedway is that last 250 yards going into one or going into three, because your engine's got to carry you there. You got to get there, and that's where you pick up that final mile an hour, half mile an hour. So, and that's where I think Dixie and Herta, the top two rows, Carpenter boys, they kind of got that figured out better than anybody.
Yeah, speaking of Carpenter, how about that? I mean, they really showed out on Sunday. They all of a sudden made you think, hey, don't forget about us. We're still very fast here.
Which is really surprising to me, because if you look at, Chevy and Honda, who's up front, it's mostly Honda.
Yeah. I don't know. Like they said, when they put the boost to them, for whatever reason, those Hondas just perform a little bit better. But you hear everybody who has a Chevy say they race amazing. So I don't know if they just found two different ways to skin the cat or what they're trying to do there. But
how many engine failures did you say there were this year, David? I watched your last video, and you said there were, what, 2 or 3?
2 engine failures. We had Bourdais have a turbo fire on the first day. Oil got onto the turbo. Obviously, I think in layman's terms, he blew up. And then I think the exact same thing happened to Simon Pagenaud yesterday in the final, or not final practice, but I guess post-qualifying practice. We used to have this down to a formula where it was so easy to remember what the days were called. But so now the key point in all of this is that the Chevy engines, or in fact everybody's engine, gets changed before the race per IndyCar rules. And a lot of times this is when Chevy and Honda will add extra bits to the cars to, extra go fast parts or more reliability. So we'll have to see. But I would say it's something that is worth watching. Because when you have 2 engine failures from the same manufacturer, you definitely have a little bit of a pattern establishing itself. I think the real tell will be if anybody blows up on carb day, because that's kind of what we saw with Honda in 2017, if you guys will remember.
Right. Alonso.
Yeah, and there was I believe Ed Jones blew a motor on carb day.
One of them lost one. Somebody lost a Honda on carb day. I forget who it was, but
it was a yellow car. I remember that, but that was about it.
I almost thought it was Ryan Hunter-Reay's who I thought it was.
That was in the race. Hunter-Reay was leading and blew up. And then Kimball was leading and blew up, and then Alonso was kind of moving to the front and blew up. So that was a bit monumental. I don't know if we're really preparing to see that with Chevy. I mean, the other thing is, and I guess Spike could probably talk about this a little bit, is that it seems like it's going to be a lot more of a track position race this year. And that's probably the big disadvantage to the Chevys qualifying so poorly, is that you're going to have to make it up either in the pits or on the restarts, because otherwise you're just going to kind of be stuck in line the entire race.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and it's going to be a track position. It's going to be everything, and I think that's why a lot of guys was putting a big emphasis on trying to get in the first 2 rows, because I believe you're going to have to be around the top 5 or 6 to have a shot at this thing. Anything farther than that, and you're going to really struggle, because the cars are just too equal, and you're going to fight too much aerodynamic problems any farther back. So, but it's never say impossible, right? Or never say never, as they say. So,
one of the big surprises to me, the big failure I felt this weekend was when that Firestone tire failed for Jack Harvey. That thing, that thing delaminated. People are like, oh, it blistered. You don't blister a tire in the pits. That thing delaminated. And
that was shocking.
And it's built well. I mean, it didn't come apart in the 6 laps or whatever it is. 6, 7 laps, how many laps you're out there. But I was shocked at that. I guarantee Firestone was looking at that and trying to figure out what happened somewhere in the manufacturing process, what happened there, because that's disconcerting as a manufacturer.
Oh yeah,
And I'm sure Jack Harvey, when he saw that, was like, "What the hell?"
Hey, as long as we don't have a tire debacle like we did for the U.S. Grand Prix, I think we'll be good.
Yeah, no, you're right there, and there's no worry about that. I mean, you didn't hear anything about
right
anybody else having a problem, so it was just a one-off,
just a fluke thing.
Yeah. I mean, seemingly so, right? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that's kind of been. I mean, Harvey's kind of had the cartoon anvil falling on him. They did have to change a motor. I don't know if it was actually a failure, but Honda saw something that they didn't like, and they changed it in the first practice session. And then you had the tire delamination, which was, and you guys talk about a potential problem. I just kind of look at that and I say, I think that's an extreme abnormality. I think you look at how many tires Firestone makes per year and how many are used and how many problems like that we see. I would be very surprised if that shows up in the race.
Well, they're coded out. They scan them. They're all coded out, and they get manufacturing codes and date codes and everything on them. If they have any kind of question at all, I'm sure they'll just pull that entire lot of tires. Depending on how they're made. I don't know how they're made, but say it's just part of a certain run. I imagine they just pull them all out of that run just to be on the safe side. Would be my guess, but. It was, I guess when you look at it overall, I guess you can't say it was surprising, the Fast 9, because they really kind of qualified where they qualified the first day, with the exception of VK and Carpenter, right? That was about the big change. Yeah. But you think that I personally feel that depending on what the weather's like, it could be pretty racy. I mean, you were there, you guys watched it more than I did. I wasn't able to be there. But watching the practice session, of course, guys, there's a lot more give and take in that final practice session and on carb day than there will be on race day. But, I mean, guys look like they can kind of pull on pass.
The what I've been told from at least one driver who's on the front row is that you're not going to want to lead. It's going to be one of those races where you're going to see the lead probably swapping back and forth quite a bit. The question is going to be passing past first and second, which it's kind of has been in the last few years. It seems like, you think back to the Pagenaud-Rossi duel in 19 and Dixon versus Sato last year. First and second really don't have any problem passing each other. It's that third place and fourth place and fifth place drivers that seem to struggle to pass. And so I will be interested to see how close the field stays together, if it's going to be like a 2013 style race, or if it's going to be similar to kind of what we've seen the last few years, where probably the first 10 kind of pull away from the rest of the field and they just all kind of have their own race the whole time. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess if you step back and look at it realistically, I mean, not really that much has changed from last year. So, I mean, I don't know if they've made any modifications to the body kits.
They've made a few to the floor. They've added, I think they've closed, there's a hole in the bottom of in the floor. I believe they've closed that up a little bit, and they've added some strakes to the entrance and exit to the tunnels, and those supposedly have added at least a little bit more downforce to the cars, so they run closer together. The passing is kind of the question, and again, it's hard to tell from practice because everybody's being so kindly to each other.
Right.
The only guy I saw yesterday was Montoya. Just wasn't letting anybody pass him. But that's Montoya.
Does that really surprise anybody, though?
No, absolutely not.
So that's old habits are hard to break. So
that's funny. So kind of where do you think this lands at? I mean, it's sort of like when we did the Chili Bowl show, right? It's hard to pick against the guy that's showing you everything all week. Yeah. Me personally, I just don't see how you don't think of Dixon as being a winner. Yeah.
And it's not just a guy who's showing you everything this week. I mean, it's a guy who's showing you everything the past 2 or 3 seasons.
Right.
So yeah, it's hard not to pick him, I think, for sure.
my argument there would be that I think last year he showed everything too, and he got beat. So
Yeah.
I don't think he's unbeatable. But I also would say that I've asked around a little bit, and again, these are drivers who are going to be chasing Dixon on race day,
Sure.
but they think that Dixon doesn't have the race car. They don't think he's going to be. I don't want to necessarily invoke what happened to Marco last year, but it could be something similar to that, where he has a fast qualifying car, but once race day comes around, will just slowly fade back into that midfield. We'll see, but that's what I've been told, is that Dixon's really not a race car that people are looking at. You look at kind of Herta, VK, even guys like Connor Daly and Scott McLaughlin, who are starting a little further back in the field. Those are the names I'm starting to hear as we kind of approach race day.
I felt all along, I thought, and I've said this before they even hit the track, a guy who is being very quiet is Ray Hall. But he's quiet, but he is always up there. And this was Texas was like that. The road courses have been that way. And, there's a guy that can win on a big race on a big oval.
And how many times has Team Rahal been up there in the front in the 500?
Right.
A lot.
So I think, of course, Sato, hard to count Sato out. He's always there. I think, the 500 is the 500, right, Spike? I mean,
absolutely.
A younger driver. I mean, you look at Herta, he's got all that speed, but man, just if there's a mistake in the pits, misses the box by just a bit. Like VK, it's not like VK wasn't good last year, and he was a pit stop away from being kind of in the mix.
Right.
So it's funny how at that place you have such a long race, but man, there's those little things that just kind of happen during the race that if you aren't lucky to get a yellow, they kind of make up that gap. It kind of a lot of times it falls. That's why it falls to the older drivers, I think.
Well, there's definitely. I mean, the Indy, like all races, you got to have Lady Luck's got to be smiling at you a little bit.
Right.
You got to catch those yellows, right? You got to catch those breaks, and that usually breaks away the top 4 or 5 guys. So those are the ones that caught the breaks, and the rest of the fields didn't. And but I'm going to be a Bobby Unch on you, and I'm telling you, Dixie's got him covered.
Yeah.
Dixie's got him handled. So that's my prediction for the race, anyhow.
So if you had to pick, so you get 3 picks. Who are your 3 picks, Spike? So Dixon's one of them.
Dixie, Sato. I've always liked Sato. I always like anybody who goes out and tells me, no risk, no reward kind of situation. That throws me back to the old school. I like that.
Now your dad would like that right up until the reward was not worth the risk, right?
Well, yeah, right. There's always a point to it,
Right,
but,
right.
So I'd have to say Dixie and Sato, and third, I don't know. That's kind of opened up to 3 or 4 people. I really don't have a good third pick in that. Just to throw one out, I think Ed's due for a good race.
I agree. You're right about that. It's funny. We talked about Ed, and then we come to pick time, and then nobody ever talks about Ed.
Right. I mean, because Ed hasn't had what you call real strong race days, but he's due for one. And
you're right.
And he's now this year he's got a partner, or he's got a teammate that's as fast as he is, if not faster. And so, I think they can play off one another. They can do some things, and I think he's going to be a player.
Yeah, that's a great.
So I'd have to take those 3 as my pick.
Who you got, Scott?
Man, I think I just said him. I think I got to say Dixon until he fades to the back, like David's predicting. But
I didn't say the back.
No, I'm kidding.
I want to be very clear.
So he fades. No, I've got Dixon. I would have to say Ray Hall. And, man, I'm just going to go – I'm going to throw a bone to the young guys. I'm going to go VK. What do you got, Aaron?
So I have to do Dixon. I mean, it's just a no-brainer. But I'm going to have to go with Colton as well, just because, I mean, he's super competitive this year, and I think he may have that missing link now, and that missing link is none other than Brian Herta. I mean, you've seen what Brian Herta's done in the past. I mean, 2011 was his first 500 as like a strategist, right, David?
No, not the first one, because he'd done it before for Saavedra the year before.
Yeah, you're right.
But obviously, he was pretty inexperienced at that point.
Exactly. And I mean, and then he won obviously back in 2016 with that great strategy that we all are very familiar with. So in Colton's, extremely competitive all year. So with Brian Herta, that's definitely going to be a combination I think is going to be tough for anyone to break. And then my third pick, I've said this the past 2 years, but I just feel like Joseph Newgarden is just kind of due for it. I definitely.
Yeah, you start wondering when Joseph Newgarden starts becoming the Dale Earnhardt Sr. of the Speedway, right? I mean, if and I don't mean that as a slight. I say that out of all respect. The guy is so good, and he's good there. He just doesn't have that one result that talks about how good he is,
Right. I mean, I tell you what, if I got a fourth pick, we were talking before we were recording, we were talking about a tweet, and I'm sure you've seen this, David. You're kind of the king of Twitter, especially lately.
That was a great Freudian slip there.
Yeah. I honestly didn't even mean to say that. It slipped. I swear, that's so funny. Spike doesn't even know what we're talking about.
No. You're better off not knowing Spike. Trust me.
But there was Jake Query had a very interesting tweet where he said 1973 Johnny Rutherford starts on the pole, doesn't lead a lap. 1974 Johnny Rutherford starts 25th, wins his first Indy 500. 2020 Marco starts on the pole, doesn't lead a lap. 2021 Marco starts 25th.
Oh goodness.
Man, I really like Marco. I do, and I would never tell you like people run Marco down. I don't think he deserves it. I just don't think he can walk in. I don't think he's the kind of guy that can just walk in here on a one-off and win it. I just don't. I mean, that's my opinion, and I would say it to him personally if I had to, and that's nothing against him. I root for Marco. I really do. I'm a fan of him as a person, and I just but boy, I can't commit to that. I just can't do it. I just there ain't no way that dude's walking in off the street and win that race.
I mean, drivers have. I mean, the last time would have been 2011 with Weldon, unless I'm missing someone.
Man, there's a big difference between Dan Weldon and Marco
Andretti. Yeah. I mean, Weldon finished second 2 or 3 years in a row. So
I'll tell you what, though, my heart sank for Marco. I was standing in Jufrey's suite. We were talking about Jufrey, and I saw Marco go through 3 when he's leading. I thought he had it, and then when he come across the short chute, it almost looked like he lifted. I mean, that's how fast Hornish was running down, and he got past there at the end. I mean, I felt horrible for him. And Sam Hornish, great race car driver, deserves to win the 500. I just felt bad for Marco. I mean, to lose it like that. And I'll never forget what he said. He said something, I guess the effect of what he said afterwards. He goes, "You're never guaranteed another chance to win it." After you got out of the car. Yep. Look at J.R. Hildebrand. I mean, people would have thought J.R. Hildebrand may have had a few more shots, based on his performance that day. And has he even sniffed it since then?
No.
I don't think he's been. He's nowhere in the hunt since then. So.
Yeah, I didn't think so. And it's just, man, when those opportunities come, you got to squeeze them by the throat, man.
Yeah, I mean, Indianapolis is a hard place, as we've talked before, and it's it gives you nothing. It'll take everything, and you got to go out and earn it every time. There's no gimmies there. So.
Yeah, and that's really kind of leads into Charlie Kimball a little bit. Just talking about the place didn't owe him nothing.
Right.
When he got out, he missed a show. I mean, they gave everything they had. For whatever reason, they couldn't get in. He wrote that really nice letter to the fans, and a lot of class. I don't know Charlie. David probably talked to him a little bit. It seems like a really great guy, and you kind of feel bad, but man, they just didn't have what it took this year.
Yeah, he is obviously one of the most upbeat drivers I've ever heard come out of their 34th.
Right.
That is such a horrible time to somebody to have to give an interview to begin with, and to come out of there positive, any positive at all is got to be pretty difficult. I don't think I could have done it in my younger years, and as a matter of fact, I didn't. But so, it's a very tough thing.
Oh, I can't imagine. I mean, I'm the same way. I can be pretty bitter. So, I would not be great in that situation. Spike has seen me. I can be as equally bitter as I can be equally jovial. So,
but and especially in the old days, we did. When we had to spend 3 weeks working at it, trying to get to it, man, and you poured your heart and soul in that place, and you give it everything, and it's not good enough. That's hard to swallow.
Right, I agree. I mean, I just, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you did it personally, but.
Well, you always thinking next year, always another one.
Right.
That's the only saving grace.
Right. 365 days, I get another shot at her.
Get another shot. Play what if for a whole year.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine that.
No, I couldn't either, man.
It makes for long years sometimes, doesn't it?
Well, but like you said, play what if, like we talked about before, there's still, just stupid midget races that I still every once in a while just be like, what the hell? What could we have done?
Sure.
And I can't imagine when you ramp that up times 1,000, at the Speedway. I just can't imagine,
But you know how racing is. There's just so many variables that control so much.
But if you say Spike, so if you were having a really just bad month where you just knew you didn't have a speed and you didn't make the race, I mean, was there ever a feeling of relief, it was just over with, kind of out of the misery, or was it still you know what I'm saying?
1988, Scott.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that was a sign of relief when that thing hit the fence. I'll tell you that.
Really?
Yeah, I was in it and it hit the fence, and it was still a sign of relief. I was just, thank you sucker, for being dead. I had to walk away from it.
That's right.
If I could have had a shovel, I'd have thrown some dirt on it.
The absolute worst race car I've ever put my hands on in my life.
Yeah. But, then saving graces, we got a better car the next day and had 1 day shot at it. We had a shot to make the race. So we had a little saving grace after that. But yeah, that was the 1 year when I walked out of there. I was just glad it was over. Just finally it was finished.
Yeah. That was a tough month, bud.
That was a tough one. Yeah.
I never went through any of the others, but man, that was a tough one.
That's a bad one to be your first, Scott,
Or a good one. Depending how you look at it.
Depending how you look at it, yeah. Yeah. So it was a hard one.
So the young guys kind of got some lessons the other day. Alex Palou, he got a little taste of Indy the other day, and as well as a guy who's never really ever turned the wrong wheel there in Ferrucci.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, David. You know these guys more than the rest of us. Why did he go out and qualify yesterday on that run? He couldn't have proved anything.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think in some ways they were trying to gauge the Fast 9 conditions. The problem is that Palou was inexperienced, and the car was obvious. I mean, if you watch the onboard, the warm up lap and going into turn 1, it was wrecking loose, and he stuck with it going into turn 2, and it finally bit him. So it's just a driver who's in the second year, and I'm sure you can probably speak to this a lot better than I can. A driver in his second year, just getting bigger balls than his brain, I suppose.
Yeah, well, he made his biggest fatal mistake is the car let him know in turn 1 that it wasn't happy, and he didn't listen to it in turn 2, and he paid the price. Those things will at Indianapolis. They will give you a warning. You just got to be able to see it.
I was really wondering if that would spook him at all during his qualifying run on Sunday.
Well, I came from Speedway Indoor Karting, and he just so happened to be in there, so we got to have a bit of a conversation about it. Yeah, no, he was. That's the thing about those young guns, man. They're nuts. They are crazy because they just, they're supermen. They don't think anything can hurt them, and they're just, he was like, yeah, the car was just fine when they repaired it the next day, and he went out there and qualified better than he had the previous day with the car that he ended up wrecking. So, these guys are. I mean, that's the same thing. I talked to VK right after the qualification attempt, and when he had that big moment in turn 1. He's just like, yeah, I just kept my foot in it. It worked. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, it did work for him, and that was really spectacular on VK. That was quite a save, and he was fortunate.
Ferrucci's the one I wonder about.
Well,
I mean, he went back out. I mean, he was fast. I mean, it didn't really put a hitch in his giddy up at all. But at the time I was thinking, I wonder how he's going to react to this a little bit.
Yeah. Ferrucci was kind of the strangest of all of the 3 incidents we're talking about, because I thought Ferrucci entered the corner pretty high to begin with. When I first saw it, to me it looked like something just wasn't right with the car. I mean, dramatically wrong with the car, because he never really entered the corner the way he should, and he. When that thing snapped, he was half a car width, maybe a car width out of the groove. And it was a strange thing. And I never have heard him talk about it or address it, why he was up there to begin with. But unless the TV didn't catch it and it snapped when he entered the corner right away, but that would have been, an awful straight line for it to snap there. But I found it pretty strange.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember the crash as well, though. The one video I watched, remember the crash is that one on Barstool Sports where that guy's doing the selfie and the guy's in Ferrucci's crashing behind him.
Oh, yeah.
That guy's attention.
But I never heard Ferrucci talk about it, so I really don't know.
Right.
Which,
So on the Palou's car, so the driver qualifies now, not the car. Is that how that works now, David?
Yeah, and it's kind of stupid.
Well, I agree with that. I don't agree with that. But they still decided to save that car because they said the left side was still perfect. So they figured they could get the right side good enough, essentially.
Right.
In the left side, they'd spent so much time working on the car. There's something in the left side that they didn't want to get rid of. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
There's a reason why they wanted to run that car, and it felt like the right side damage wasn't that big a deal, but as long as it wasn't hurt on the left.
Yeah. Well, I don't know I'm sorry, David. I don't know the current rules, but how much of that car can you replace without having to go back positions?
There's literally not a rule anymore.
That didn't exist anymore. Then.
Yeah. So you can just go to a backup car now and just keep your position.
Okay.
Which is, that's not the way I think it should work, but I don't write the rules. So.
Well, I'm the same way there. I think if you crash your primary car, there needs to be
pay a penalty.
There needs to be a penalty for that.
Right.
I think they changed the rule for Kurt Busch, and they just haven't changed it back because Kurt Busch crashed his car in carburation day, I believe, or no, sorry, it was the Monday practice session, and he tubbed the car, and they had to go to a backup, and they just let him keep the starting spot rather than have the big NASCAR star have to deal with all of the turbulence on the start. So, but this weekend kind of made me think that, boy, we really, had it pretty good there a couple of years ago, where a lot of these I think they just overthought the rules. I think they just need to kind of simplify things again, because there was needlessly complicated parts of the rules. And, like the thing with Kellett pulling out a line and then running a slower time and still making the race. And then I really don't think they knew what they were doing there. I think they just made a mistake and lucked out.
Right.
I feel like it was just better when it was, if you have the 31st fastest time and we're bumping up to a 30th, if somebody withdraws their time, that moves the 31st fastest car up into the field again, right? I mean,
I agree.
It seems so simple, and yet we got rid of that rule.
Well, you don't even have a time. It's like you didn't even go on the track. If you're 31, 32, 33, it's like you didn't even go on track.
Makes me want to pull my hair out.
Yeah, that one's very complicated, because I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, well, why would you do that if you're going to lose that time? But what's funny is Will Power didn't know it either.
Right. I mean, Dalton didn't know it. He was doing the 4 laps.
Right. I mean, because they went to Power, and Power said, "This is ridiculous."
Hell, he didn't even know he didn't make the race.
Right. And what's crazy too about Power is that if Top Gun and Foyt could have magically waved a magic wand and found that speed, there was no way they were going to get Power's car in the race. No way.
No.
He hit that fence so hard and knocked the toe. You ain't going to get around there with the toe knocked out that far. It ain't going to happen.
I mean, I thought we were going to see another Will Power hot tub interview.
Well, I'll tell you, he was lucky he didn't break the wheel. I mean, so many times you see him hit that wall. I mean, in the race, Michael Andretti lost the 595 with a similar sort of a wall bend. It didn't look very hard, but boy, it screwed the car up enough that they couldn't win, keep going. So it's amazing to me.
It looked to me like the wheel was bent. It looked to me like it bent the wheel.
The only thing that really saved him is the fact it was the safety barrier that he hit, and not if it had been the concrete. You're right. I don't think he would have survived the wall. I think the wheel would have broke if he'd have been concrete, but the safety barrier, I think, saved it.
Well, and the fact it didn't drag the right front into the fence too is just a miracle. I mean, really get it to dig in, because it's not like he was Sneva and just grazed it. He popped it hard.
Well,
and
5 inches.
Enough, 5. And he's good enough to make sure he stayed in the throttle too. He had to turn. If he'd have blurped the throttle, that'd have been a bad deal too.
What was that last lap, like a 2:26 or something? Is that what it was?
I thought it was a little faster than that, but it could have been. Yeah,
I thought it was 2:20. It might have been like a
it might have been. I don't remember. I didn't really think he lost. I thought he was going to lose a significant amount on that one, but I don't know if he lost all that much.
Yeah, I could be wrong. I didn't look it up before the show. I do. Right. I do horrible show prep. If anybody hasn't figured that out yet.
Well, I don't think you do any, so I don't even say.
I didn't want to say it like that, but you're right. I let the show be organic. I don't.
Yeah, organic.
I will say this: we did a little promo with David Land yesterday.
That was pretty good, wasn't it?
it was great. You and Jacob, and you could definitely tell David does this for a living. You look at it, you're like, oh, this isn't that hard. But you get up there and you actually try to do it, like it's a whole different thing.
And that was only like a 10-second promo.
Right.
Think about talking for 10 minutes about 35 different cars and trying to keep that straight.
I think someone was to nominate David Land for an Emmy.
I don't know about that.
Can YouTubers get Emmys? Can we do that?
No, I think there's a different award show for that.
Do they call them Tubies?
I think they're called like Webby or something.
Webby? Oh. They should have Tubies.
Tubies.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that name choice there.
So you mentioned you talked to Enerson, and Aaron said you had talked to Throckmorton and them a little bit. He
yelled at me.
Well, yeah, because he didn't feel like you gave him the respect.
Well, what the real problem was I was just skeptical because I'm like, man, this just doesn't. I mean, where is it?
Right.
Where is the funding coming from? How are they going to get an engine? And they did it. They put it all together. They ran 227 miles an hour, and that's a lot better than most people would do with only 40 days of preparation and one test day. So, I mean, I got to give them a lot of credit. I mean, I'm happy to be proven wrong. That's the thing. If you're gonna, especially when it's a new team, this sport needs a lot more. This sport needs to expand and not shrink. And so the more people that can get involved, the better it is for the sport, because the more opportunities there are. It's funny. It was something I was thinking about was, I was kind of walking through the garage and just kind of thinking to myself, there's 35 teams here that have an engine lease. And I thought back to like 1995, obviously that's the one everybody points to is like, oh, that's the last great Indy 500. And I'm like, how much less, is it really that much less healthy now than it was then? Because if you think about it, you had the Buick option then, and that probably accounted for about 10 entries. So that gets you to 45, 46 cars. And everybody else was leasing engines. If we had a Buick option right now, I'm sure we'd be around 4. We might even be at 50 entries, because there's certainly, I think, a lot more people willing to enter the Indy 500 than there are cars or engines available at the current with the current rules. So I kind of realized this month is I don't think it's as unhealthy as maybe it appears sometimes, just because we kind of judge it based on rule sets that were much more open and willing to allow other ideas and home built cars into the race.
Yeah. I don't know. Spike, Dad and I go back and forth on this, because obviously Spike knows my dad built a ton of Spike's motors over the years and motors, period. I as a son of a motor builder, I sure see the benefits of an engine lease program, because for an owner, it takes a lot of the variables out of it, I feel. But as somebody who's owned the cars, what's your opinion on something like that?
I think an engine lease is one of the worst things you can do to auto racing.
That's what he thinks too. Yeah.
And it is absolutely, you take away the control from the racing team and you have no control. You can't touch that motor. Takes away too much of the individual free thinking, enthusiasm.
Right.
And now it's cookie cutter. I think the worst thing, and I understand the cost, and I understand all that, why they did that. But, my opinion, when they went to cookie cutter cars and now you only got 2 motors and you can't touch the motors, to me, it just took away all the excitement of IndyCar racing.
Oh man, David loves hearing that.
Well, you can't even put a motor in a backup car anymore. That's kind of
right.
Part of the excitement of Bump Day is Foyt's always just going to roll some piece of crap out right at the gun and throw Ziggy Snyder in there and try to put it in the show.
I was telling my brother, yesterday, in the old days, Foyt had the cover off and had the blankets out. With the timing light, he'd be pumping a bunch of timing in that thing and send them out there. Go hit it. And that was exciting. That's, guys would just do whatever it took to get the job done. And to me, it's taken away a lot at Indianapolis. Now, other circuits, I'm sure it's a better program than the old ones, the old days. But at Indy, I think it costs Indy more than anywhere else.
Yeah, I'd say you're right on that. I asked Parnelli essentially the same thing. He was the same way as you. He would rather sit more open and less spec and that type of thing too. Because like he said he feels like, and it's the same thing I've heard you say is it was that golden period there, 60s through the early 90s, and he felt like that was the best part of the year for the sport.
Right. It's just hard for older guys like me, I guess, in that age, that era, to understand an engine lease and can't touch anything.
Bean counters got involved again, didn't they?
Yeah,
Ruined
they did.
the whole thing.
Ruined the whole thing, absolutely. So we blamed them years ago when it got so expensive you had to have sponsors. Well, now that was a bean cutter's problem, and now it's the same thing. Now you can't touch motors, can't touch hardly anything. So, but it is good close racing. I'll give him that.
It is close racing. We were speaking about power. Did you hear him say yesterday, or did you hear anybody talk about they had a fuel pressure sensor problem on that car when they went to go out for practice?
Oh yeah.
When they went to go back out for practice, they found they had a fuel pressure sensor problem. I thought that was kind of strange that they didn't find it before. Maybe it just happened.
Right.
But I thought that was kind of ironic in a way. Just that they had been struggling so much, and then they had a fuel pressure sensor that they had to replace.
Yeah, it almost had to be right at that point. I mean, Christ, they got sensors on everything. I mean, they know exactly what's going on every part of that car. And, it'd be hard to imagine if they were running with a fuel pressure problem.
You would think. I mean, I agree with that. It was just kind of odd, the timing, because, it was right at the beginning of that, when he was able to get out to go to that session.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like the old days where you had to put a pressure gauge up on the injector, and and the driver had to look at it and then come in and give you a number, right?
Right.
So,
in the 70s and 80s, Spike, how many people did you guys have working on your car, like actually part of your team?
Now we're talking about. No, wait a second. When we
there's working, and there's paid work, there's free work, and then there's free people that you like to have, and free people you don't want to have.
Well, I heard Scott was part of your pit crew one year, so I'm guessing he was the free help.
Well, actually, I got paid $100.
Oh.
Yeah, see, he was a paid employee.
Yeah, 88. I got paid $100 now. Well, it depends. When it depends on who you could have scrounged up from Sparta and Jasper.
Right. For a lot of years, we had one paid employee on our race team. That was Eddie.
That's right.
And we ran 9 race cars.
Right.
And we had Eddie. And we had a lot of free help.
Yeah, man. It was funny.
When we got running better, we had 3 guys working full time.
Well, Barnes worked for you that one year, right?
Yeah, Barnes worked for us, and Eddie and Walter.
Yeah.
Goodwin. Those are the 3 mechanics. Those are our 3 paid mechanics.
Yeah, that no way could there have ever been any friction there.
No. There was just an everyday involvement of something going on. You had to put a fire out every day.
Oh my gosh!
But it was exciting. We weren't what you call a high-paid team.
No.
Right.
So,
that's so funny, man. God.
And most teams back then were that way. I mean, of course, there was Patrick and Penske. They had 15, 20 guys on the payroll. But that was the exception. That wasn't the rule.
Well, basically, like when you go to race time, it'd be Bill, Mark, my brother Bill, my brother Mark.
Right.
Jim would come and fuel, I think, right?
Right. Contractor.
Yeah, my Uncle Jim. And then just other people that whoever you could scrounge up, could go for a weekend.
Yeah. And then sometimes you pick the guy up at the racetrack if you knew him. And he worked for you before, you pick somebody up at the racetrack.
Like David. David could have been there with his camera.
Absolutely.
He could have been fueler or something. Man.
He could have been fueling, right?
That's happened to me at a sports car race before.
Yeah.
Did it?
It just they were like, oh, we need a guy to hold the fire extinguisher. So I did that. I went over the wall, and unfortunately, Michelin decided to build a bad tire for a front wheel drive car, and we crashed out. But but I do have to say I'm going to have to sign out here in a bit. I didn't get to give my picks.
Yeah, I was going to say we need your 3
picks. Good.
So here, I think Aaron is spot on with picking Colton Herta. I think he's got the racing chops, the driving chops to go. Because here's the thing, and this is kind of when everybody claims that there's 15, 20 guys who can win the Indianapolis 500, I always kind of qualify it with, okay, but who can outduel Scott Dixon or Takuma Sato or XYZ? And so there are very few guys who can do that, and I think Colton Herta is one of those guys. And I think another part to that is, again, what Aaron mentioned, which is the strategy side of things, which is Brian Herta. First time on the box with that team, with that driver. And it's also the 5-year anniversary of his last win in 2016, which was the 5-year anniversary of his first win in 2011, both strategy call wins. I think that if I'm picking a number 2, I'm going to go off the beaten path. Well, it's weird to pick a 3-time winner and say they're off the beaten path, but I think it's Helio Castroneves. He reminds me an awful lot of Sato last year, very consistent. In fact, he ran, I think, the most consistent run of qualifying period on day 1. 4 laps over 231 miles an hour. I think you shouldn't sniff at that. And I think his car looks very strong, and he's got the Andretti parts with the Shank team. And I think he's very motivated to get that 4th win for Meyer Shank Racing. And if I'm picking a 3rd, it's very difficult to pick against Alexander Rossi. I think he's almost, in a lot of ways, this generation's Rick Mears. He's always up front at the Indianapolis 500. I think he's got many wins in his future. And him starting on the inside of that 4th row, the 10th position, I always look at that guy who's just I think that was the same position. In fact, I have to look this up, but it might have been the exact same position he started from in 2016. So maybe that's a good omen. But I think those are my 3. I think it's definitely going to be an Andretti-affiliated car that's going to win the race.
Oh, I mean, I think that's hard to pick against. I think you're right. I mean, ultimately, I'm going to win with Dixon, but I think you're probably right.
That's right.
No, like I told you before, man, if I had to make my money from gambling on racing, I'd be destitute on the street. So
yeah,
you're probably right.
Well, I think it's going to be between Andretti and Ganassi. I'll put it that way. I think with the Meyer Shank cars, obviously, kind of incorporated into that. So you've probably you've got 8 Andretti cars and 4 Ganassi cars there. So yeah, there's 12 cars that can potentially win this race. I'd probably say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good choosing. That's pretty good choice.
Before you go, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, before David goes, we'll just do a couple quick plugs. First off, follow David Land on YouTube.
Please do. Yes. We did a full week of practice coverage. Got the starting grid video, the total ABC Sports ripoff video. I love it, though. It's fun to do. And then, obviously, stay tuned for analysis of the greatest spectacle in racing, I guess.
Yeah, it's been good stuff this week you've done.
Thank you.
Robin even commented how much she thought it was really good, too.
Miller?
No, my Robin.
Oh, I was like, wow, that surprised the shit out of me. I was very surprised.
But I will tell you this. Getting good words out of her is probably a lot harder than getting good words out of Robin Miller.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take that for what it's worth. Thank you to Robin. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to say thanks too for coming in. Obviously you live and breathe this stuff, and I think you mentioned Robin Miller in a way.
Here comes the comparison.
I personally feel like you're the newer generation, Robin Miller. I mean, we got to have somebody.
Robin Miller 2.0.
We got to have somebody. I wouldn't say comparison because Robin, he lived and breathed it, in a much different way, but the way you had to do it then, right?
Right. Whereas
today, me personally, you're willing to say things that people don't want to hear, and and today that's not easy.
Yeah, right.
No,
it's a lot harder to do it today than it was for Robin. Although Robin, I guess, did get fired from his job, but you can't get fired from your job. But,
yeah, it's perk of being your own boss, huh?
Yeah. So I appreciate you coming on, and thanks for all your insight, everything you do for the sport. No
problem. Thank you, Scott. Thanks for having me, Aaron. Spike, it's been an honor to meet you. I can't wait to shake your hand in person. I always love, like I said, meeting the guys who have actually done it is always an honor. And it's great to kind of bounce ideas off of somebody who really does know what they're talking about. I just pretend like I know what I'm talking about.
One thing we got to do, though, one thing we're going to have to do, and we can't do it on this show because you got to go, We're gonna have to settle that Twitter beef you got going on, though.
You couldn't let it slide.
No, we'll have to work on it. Well, I mean,
I need to get royalties, man. What's going on? We got this unlicensed merch coming around. What the hell's that all about?
They're wearing T-shirts and stuff like that. We got to shut this.
Scott's
down.
already talked about making a David Land related T-shirt.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Hey, David. Speaking of merch, where can they get some David Land merch?
Yeah, you can actually get officially licensed David Land merch at race92.com.
Can we say officially licensed? I mean,
we got a contract, right?
Yeah,
so that's
sure.
officially licensed, I believe.
Yeah,
What's the promo code, David?
David 10 at checkout when you buy more than 2 shirts. And we got some good shirts.
Yes, we do.
Hey,
I've got ants crawling all over mine right now, unfortunately.
Hey, when we go catch an open wheel race? When we going to do that? When we going to catch a mid-year sprint car race?
I'm going to be at the Carbonite Classic. You going to be there?
I might.
Come to the Carbonite Classic, Scott. Come on.
Spike understands. I got a lot going on in my life.
Yeah,
the
man's just covered up all the time.
I won't even go watch my own.
Well,
family
David's
race.
covered up by ants, so.
Yeah, David's covered by ants.
No, I really actually I do have plans to go out there. I do have something early today that if it doesn't go sideways, I'll definitely be there. But
yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no, I feel you. Trust me, I'm getting a house ready to actually live in at the same time as the Indianapolis 500. Good God Almighty, I've been swamped the last month. It feels like it's been a 3-week process, though. I will say, boy, I wish I had the platform I had in Spike's day, because I sure would love to do 3 weeks of coverage and not just 1 week of coverage. That would be the freaking dream, dude. Hopefully we can at least get back to 2 weeks someday, because boy, I love this event more than anything, and the fact that we have less of it than we used to is a bit disappointing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, when you get out there, Kim will be announcing out there Carbonite Classics.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So make sure you hit her up.
We'll do.
Maybe. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I could be the color commentator, right? Come on.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll kick Howden out, just.
There you go.
And by the way, David, me and Scott were making plans before this to set up some video of going Bigfoot hunting. So you're definitely invited. When me and Scott
absolutely.
go. And Spike, you're invited as well.
Oh yeah, if Scott's going Bigfoot hunting, I got to see this action.
This is viral with David Land and
David Land.
Well, see,
yeah.
You get Chin and David Land. You get Chin and David Land going. Now that would be. We got a buddy named Chin, and I'm here to tell you.
Oh,
Chin is a good time.
That would be a viral sensation. I'll tell you that right now. You'd put finding Bigfoot out of business.
Chin's from the Big Island in Hawaii. He hunts wild boar and stuff. Bare hands.
He was sending photos last night of animals that he's killed. So yeah, I would not mess with that guy.
He wants to get his hands on Bigfoot. So.
Well, last time I was on this podcast, Scott was all talking about, building a midget. If you really want me to be the next Robin Miller, we got to go get a midget out going,
Spike knows kind of what's going on behind the scenes a little bit. We got to take care of this other issue we got with that other motor. And once that's taken care of, we can start working on the other.
Well,
my nephew's a little hard to pin down. He changes his mind a lot.
Well, Chris said he's picked his motor
Must
up
be
yesterday.
A Bowie thing.
Yeah,
Must be a Bowie thing.
Yeah, so he was building one style of Honda. Now he said, well, I'd just rather run national midgets. So he made it a national motor. So then we got parts. We got to go through the parts that are left over that have been bought so we can do the other deal. So once he's done with that, then we'll be able to start working on the other.
Well,
and
it'll be interesting.
And you and Kellen will have to fight to the death to get in the seat. Kellen wants to run it, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, we just got to have a young driver's test, It's like F1 style. Just, whoever can set the fastest lap time, That's it.
It was so funny. There's a pretty well-known car owner, midget sprint car owner that did that about 10 years ago. But oddly enough, the guy that got the ride was the one that brought the most money. Strangely enough.
Funny how that works, huh?
Funny how that always works.
David's got that David Land money, so you got to watch out.
Hey, let's just sell a bunch of T-shirts, and get Race 92 on the side of it.
That's right.
There we go.
There you
I've
go.
thought about it.
I gotta tell you,
I've
man.
asked Scott how much it would cost to put Race 92 on the side of that midget.
I don't know, man. Those colors are pretty bright. It costs a lot.
Top Gun would have taken your money. You could
Oh,
have
yeah.
got-
Throckmorton. I've known Throckmorton since I was probably 12 years old. He, because he's out there. He's Grant's nephew, Grant King's nephew,
right.
and Dad worked at Grant's and stuff like that. But Billy and I used to go midget racing. He would take pity and take me midget racing with him. We had a lot of good days together. But he's a good dude, man.
Yeah, I was very impressed. I'm excited to see kind of where that team goes.
They're trying to put together more races. And some of it's going to have to be road courses. The amount he's talking about. So hopefully Nashville maybe will be one. Hopefully. And, he didn't tell me that, by the way, for anybody watching.
I gotta zip my lips. That's all I'll say.
So, but
All right, well,
hopefully we can do something like that.
All right.
Well, thanks, David. Appreciate it.
Dave. We really appreciate
Dave.
it.
It's nice meeting you, Dave.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Spike, and hopefully we'll see you around the track sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. See you guys.
Hey, take care.
Yeah.
All right, Spike.
Uh-oh.
This big week for racing. Big, probably the biggest racing week in America during the whole year. I mean, what is it like after you qualified? What is that like? I mean, today it's a little different. Although I don't think they go to New York today like they used to, or go across the country.
No. I think Dixon's the only one doing something media. Did you guys have any kind of? Do you guys do any kind of media back in the 70s and 80s?
No, they take maybe the fastest qualifier, and he do a little bit of day tour or something like that.
Right.
But generally, no. They never didn't take all 33 of us anywhere. Back in those days, you couldn't get all 33 of us together in one spot if it wasn't in the racetrack. So,
right.
But this day today, most relaxed day you'll ever spend, as long as you qualified yesterday.
Right.
If you're in the top 33, today was the best day there was. You just sat back, relaxed, just clear your head, and try to go on and look things for the upcoming events.
At what point do you start feeling that tension ramp up, or did you? I mean, you're a pretty laid back guy. Yeah, I didn't think so.
Race day tension was never as much as qualifying tension.
Really?
Right.
Yeah, race was a gimme. Race was just the race, and you just you sat down. You had your meetings all week. You knew what you were going to try to do, what your goals were, what the team strategy was going to be. So when it came time, I mean, I didn't really feel jitters until maybe 5 minutes before the race had started, or before I got in the car. Then I'd get jittery. But then once I sat in the car and bolted down and got my head in right, and it was just normal. Another day race, another race.
So the younger generation like myself kind of understand how much the schedule has changed. So when you race Spike, so there was one full week of practice and then a weekend of qualifying, then another full week of practice, right? And then another weekend of qualifying?
Right. We had four full qualifying days, and we had 2 full weeks of practice.
And I think they were still doing that schedule early 2000s, right?
I don't know when they changed.
I think we had 2. I kind of remember having 2 full weekends of qualifying.
Right. It was right up until wasn't that weekend where Stewart, like they had like 2 years in a row where there was no on track action.
Right.
And I think that's when they stopped it.
Right.
I think that one year Floyd was going to put Stewart in the car.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it, which is thankfully because it would
down to a contract deal with Chevy, right?
Yeah, and thankfully that would have bumped. That would have had a chance of bumping PJ out of the show at that point.
Right.
So thankfully that didn't happen. But
yeah,
I think within a year or two that's when they stopped that, because it just didn't make any sense. You got this TV crew there all day, and there's literally you're talking about bumping from the 70s and 80s and early 90s. So
yeah, they just ran out of things to do, basically.
Yeah.
And in reality, 4 days of qualifying, I mean, unless you're back in the old days where you had 70 or 80 race cars, that was one thing. But even back then, that fourth day, for most part, they treated it like kind of just a basic old practice day. And
right.
I mean, when you had to qualify that Sunday, you were basically in big trouble, because I remember going out there at times and there's paper all over the place and the track's got trash on it and they don't clean it up. They don't care because the field's full, and there's a lot of different attitude on that fourth day than there was on the first or second. So,
yeah, no, I believe that.
Yeah, they just kind of treat you like a redheaded stepchild. If the field was full on the fourth day, you were in pretty big trouble.
Right.
When do you start planning actually for the race during May? Like, is that something like you do like a race trim, like, sometime during the first week of practice, or do you just focus on qualifying? Then as soon as you qualify, you go to race, or is it a little bit of mixture of both? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I've never had the advantage of having enough backup stuff to worry about the race until we were qualified.
Right.
Up until qualifying time, that's all you worried about. That's all you were concerned about. After that, if you got 1 or 2 days of practice in for the race back in those days, that was more than than any other place you could get. So I was never in a large enough team that we could utilize all the time we had by any stretch. We're always worried about keeping motors and stuff underneath it, and conserving equipment more than going out and trying to get track time. So it was a little different strategy. But in 80, when we were running good, we spent 2 days of trying to just be fast, and then we did spend a couple days the first week of practice. We spent 2 days on race setups, and then on what they call today Fast Friday, before Saturday, we spent nothing but running fast that day. And I say that day, we probably ran 8 laps, maybe 10 max, and put it in the barn. So, you just didn't have the equipment and the excess things sitting around that you could afford to break something at that point.
How often did you guys go through tires? I know now, like, they used to set tires for qualifying and they're done with them, or at least some teams are. Did you guys go through tires that much, or was it?
No, not really. I think, I don't really remember how many sets we went through, but we didn't burn up that many tires. We'd always, as we go, we try to keep tire wear down to minimum, because we didn't run a lot of laps at any given time during the month. If you're looking at qualifying, you don't run more than 2 or 3 laps at a time. And so if you go on race setups, you might run 1 tank session, make sure you get the fuel mileages right, and the car is good from, full to empty tanks, and the balance is okay. So that's about all you ever did back then. We didn't burn up hardly any tires.
Tires are a lot different today too. It's kind of a different mindset in how they build tires versus how they built tires in too.
Yeah.
Because you look at some of those old races and you watch old video, they'd make maybe 2-3 stops and not even change tires.
Well, didn't Mario win the race without changing the tires?
Right, because they couldn't get the right rear off.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get the right rear off, so he just ran the same tires all race. And so tires construction and the way they grip them up and stuff really changed, I felt like, in the early 80s. Spike, you can answer that because you ran in the 70s and into the 80s.
80s, yeah. Well, it changed. The tires changed dramatically when they went from the bias tires to the radials.
Right.
And how you had to treat them. So all of a sudden they weren't as flexible. You couldn't work with a tire like we could with bias plies. A bias plies you can really control with pressure, and you can, if you got a wear problem, you can control it with pressure and so forth. And radials won't allow you to do that. They're almost set when they come off of the assembly line. Their sizing and all that, you just can't play with them as much. So today, I think it's a lot more important to get the right matches, the sets. their sets of tires, make sure that set of tires balanced. Where in the old bias days, it didn't make hardly any difference. Like Scott said, I ran 500 miles. We never, ever changed the right front or changed the left front. And, those just ran the whole race. You're concerned about the right rear is about the only thing you'd ever get any wear on.
Right. Yeah. Tire, even I remember like even in the midgets and stuff like that, tires just changed in the 80s. For us, it really changed when Hoosier come along. And they started building a really fast tire but you couldn't run it as much, and it just, we, before that, we always ran like the old Goodyears or the Firestones, and then we'd run them. We were just worried about size. As long as the dots still were pretty good tread, showed pretty good tread, you didn't worry about heat cycles. Well,
heat cycle was something I never heard of until I came back and racing with you guys and talking about heat cycle on a tire. That was unconcerning. I mean, we didn't care.
Like heat cycles wasn't even really a thing. Where today, the reason why they scuffed those tires in is because they're actually making them a little tougher.
Yeah,
you scuff that. At the Speedway when they put scuffs on, actually they're putting the tires a little tougher tire because it went through a heat cycle.
Right.
It's got 2 laps on it, maybe 3 laps, but they've knocked the new off of it, but they got the temperature, and now it's just a touch harder.
Right. Yeah, in the old days, Christ, I always qualified with stickers, always.
Right.
Stickers in the old days, bias plies especially, they were always faster than a scrub tire.
Right.
Yeah, and today it's just about the opposite. But I did notice yesterday when the guys wanted to go down and really pick it up, they put stickers on.
Yeah.
So there's some of them were going out with stickers.
Right.
But,
well, I think too, because a brand new tire, if you're not careful, you'll knock the goodness off of it in those early practice laps. If you got too much wheel in it, you'll hurt them. Whereas if you got just a little bit of scuff in it, it's just tough enough. It'll last. It may not have as much raw speed, but it's a little tougher and it don't give up as much.
Right.
Yeah.
Lasts a little bit longer on the lap. So yeah, it could be, Scott. I don't know, but in the old days it wasn't quite that touchy, that sensitive.
Right. No, that's something that's definitely come along in the last, since the 80s.
Yeah. Right. Oh, probably more in the 90s, wasn't it? I don't remember too much in the 80s.
Yeah, maybe more. You definitely knew. You definitely ran them, so.
Yeah. But
I think the picks that we had earlier, I went with Spike with Dixon until somebody proves me wrong. But I can understand too why David thought Colton would win.
Right. And I agree with David on that one for sure. But and I guess all 4 of us kind of we all had at least one of the same picks, which is Dixon. So
yeah.
Well, I believe Colton heard it with his dad calling the shots. I have to agree with you there. That's a pretty tough combination. It's going to be hard to overcome them. It's just I don't know how much Lady Luck Colton has with him yet.
Right. If it gets into a strategy race,
right.
It just depends on how it all unfolds. The track temperature is supposed to be really good. If you're, of course, today's today and Sunday's Sunday, but
it's supposed to be in the 70s or something like that race day.
Yeah, it's going to be in the 70s. It'll be really nice.
It sounded like you may have the most perfect conditions you could race under.
Yep. But I'm really excited about seeing some of the young guns. I think you're getting ready to see changing the guard
for sure. Yeah.
I was going to say something when Dave was here and we got to joking around about ants and stuff like that, but
and ladies,
yeah, his Twitter beef. I think in years in the future we're going to look back at this race and look at the names in it and think, wow, what a field. It's a hell. How many former winners? The most former winners they've had since like 10 or 15 years,
Yeah,
something like that.
I believe. I don't know the exact, but wasn't it 8 or 9?
Yeah, it's like 8 or
years?
9, something like
Just
that.
9. And,
But it's a heck of a field.
and all of them have a chance of winning. Even Power, who said, I got a car I can race with, I just can't qualify.
Right.
That's for sure. Right.
Yeah. And nobody will race harder than than Power. So
No.
yeah, he'll be in it race day. He's just going to need some luck, some breaks, some yellows fall his way, and he'll be right in the hunt.
None of us even mentioned Kanan.
No, I know that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just realized that as well. Yeah, he's I definitely would not count him out. I mean, any of those Ganassi boys could easily win it.
Yeah, Chip and Mike, and those guys have got those cars. All of them are good. I mean, it ain't just one. All of them are good.
They got 4 of them in the top 10.
Well, 4 in the top 6, right? 6
top
or
6.
7?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that right? Is that 4 in the 6? Is it? Are they only split up by VK and?
So Dixon's on the front row. Second row is Kanan and Palou. So they're just split up by Colton, VK, and Carpenter.
Where's
Erickson? Oh yeah,
right.
I forgot about Erickson. Erickson is on row 3.
Right.
Right. There you go.
So yeah,
that's pretty good. That's a pretty good deal for a team. That's pretty strong. That's the old Dave Penske strong.
Right. Yeah. No, this is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're going to see a heck of a race. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I haven't been there. I only got really to watch on TV. It's like give and take on TV. And David's been there, and he's talked to them guys. So he may have a little. I'm sure he does have more insight than what I've got. So maybe at full song, they're not going to be able to pull him past or anything. But man, I don't know. We'll just have to see. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, like I said earlier, we were talking. I want to tell you what, I saw Dixon race pretty good in those practices, and I can't sit here and believe that those guys were giving it, their run at the time. Mm-hmm. And like I said, he didn't do it once or twice. I mean, he did this 4 or 5 times, and it was a pretty awesome display of power.
Right.
And doing it at will, that's what was, Indianapolis is a hard place to do things at will. And,
right.
And he just went out there and he just did it whenever he wanted to do it. And it was a pretty good display, I thought. And I haven't heard anybody else talk about it, so I don't know if it was I just observed it, nobody else did or whatever, but haven't heard anybody else talk about it. So maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Right. Well, I think, for sure it's going to be a good race. I think we all can agree on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think it's going to be a great race. So, all right, boys, are we going to put this one to bed?
Yep, I think so. Well, thank you so much, Spike.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Yeah.
Spike, Race 92's got you something here, but unfortunately I didn't go over and get it from Aaron, so I'll get it from him and give it to you. We got you something.
Oh, really? Well, that's unnecessary, but whatever. That's cool. I appreciate it. I enjoy it. I always like to talk about racing. So.
Yeah, no absolutely. Problem. We'll do something else again in the future. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's in for the Bigfoot video. So I mean, come on.
Hey.
And we were texting with Chin, your buddy Scott from work, and I think he may think that I'm joking, but I'm 100% serious. I'm 100% serious.
No, so. He and I talked about it a long time ago.
Okay.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, we'll get Spike in there, and
I gotta see this Bigfoot hunt. Now this is gonna be good.
Oh, it's gonna be. Scott's blushing. We better end this before he really starts blushing.
Yeah. That is so funny.
All right, guys, take care.
Hey, take care, Spike. Nice seeing you.
Yeah. Good to see you, Spike. Bye.